Hey, what's up, guys? Sam here. Kicking off the 9:30 for Wednesday, January 14th, 2026. 2026. They used to make movies about this year. In 2026, we would all have robot butlers and flying cars. Good to see you. Hope you're having a pleasant day. So fortunately, I think the room got you positioned for most of this. So it's a down day, but it's not a down day that was not telegraphed to you in advance yesterday. So that's always better than not. You don't want to be caught with your pants down, with your knickers in a twist. So John got you a piece, I got you a piece, and now we see what's next. I can show you exactly the signal I'm looking at if you want to see it. I talked about it yesterday in the room, and during Taylor's session, I actually asked to see if he could pull up his charts because I wanted to see what it looked like on his end. Taylor, if you're still in the background, one thing that I think would be really great that I would love to get from you is your chart with the MACD still showing. Because I think you've integrated the MACD histogram into the squeeze, so it doesn't actually show your MACD anymore. But if there's any way that you could put it back on and then send me a link, that would be great, and I would love to have it. But here we are. Do I tease the signal that showed me the way or not? When do I deliver that to you? So we've had two trades since I last saw you. We had the Bitcoin trade, which if you held it, that's a gigabanger. And of course, we had the SPX trade from yesterday into today, which is also in of itself a little bit of a banger. In at 85, out at 200. Never hurt nobody. So there's a lot to cover. So let me just kind of start somewhere. So let me show you the signal that I was looking at. Again, if this signal is invisible to you, if you came in today with your pants down, keep an eye on your email box closer to the end of the month, because I think I might have something that can help you, because this was a rather obvious signal in my opinion. So for now, if this was a signal that, man, I'm dying to short the IWM. That's the ripest peach right now I see. The high that it made yesterday was very weak. I am dying to short the IWM, which I maybe will at some point. So here's the signal. So price that way, indicator that way. All right, see it? Why is the momentum going up with the price going down? Can somebody explain that? Price down, indicator up. No interest in the signal. Everyone's bored. No one likes it. Can I get at least one gasp in the chat? There you go. Thank you, Steve. Just one. All right. So if this is a signal, then I would wait for the signal to reverse. There's really not a lot to it. So, VIX never catches a bid. Also, another thing that helped me at least was today was VIX expiration. It wasn't a big one. It's just a weekly. Next week is the big one. But anytime that there's a VIX expiration, I kind of just always look for the pressure to come off, right? So basically, I look for VIX to get crushed into the expiration. Once the expiration strikes are expired, then I would look for a potential, release valve kind of thing. And for now, that's all I see it as is a release valve. I'm not really seeing it as like a structure breaking thing or anything. It has taken quite a bit of damage, though, I will say that. So there is that, but it's still above the daily 21, and the IWM is trading at the daily 5, so that's all pretty strong. The weakness has been exactly where we telegraphed it from the beginning, which was in tech. So I'm just going to go back to this for a second because I'm going to try to post these every Monday. There's some weekends where I might have a little bit more fun and I don't get to it, but by and large, I'm going to try to post these every Monday. And frankly, I'm just going to be straight up. It's my best work. Like, you could skip every session I do in here all week and just catch this, and this will be my best work. And frankly, if you're part of the Simpler Trading Room, this is, in my opinion, one of the nice little bonuses that you get, right? You get this as a nice little bonus. This used to be its own thing. This used to be like its own product. Frankly, it's better now than it was even back then. But it's just part of your room benefits. So take advantage of it. It'll be in the Room Drive, the files folder every Monday. But coming down here to the game plan, and again, I don't need to cover all this. Coming down here to the game plan, the major thing was the Mag 7 here were not really the play, or there's plays within the Mag 7, but they're not going to be consistent. And the reason being is very simple. It's right over here, right? And it just really stands out. Look at all these different sectors, and you see how everything here is green. And there's some that are even 100%. Not anymore, but they were. And then Mag 7 here comes in at 21%. It's the only gray. So there's going to be complexity in trading that, right? Because you're going against the grain, right? You're going against the grain. So the weakness, or the place to focus for the short, was actually in tech. So blah, 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 blah. The only thing I see is that some markets did hit some major fib targets, which they are trading below right now. So be aware of that. I do think that the market does have to go up and hit these upper targets on the rest of the indexes. So I would be pretty surprised if IWM did not have a date relatively quickly soon with 265. Maybe just goes up there and grabs it just to say that it hit. DIA is 502, and then of course the SPY and the Qs were already hit, and they're trading below there now. But if these were to go on to get hit, I would imagine that these would go back to these respective levels. And do it that way. So the only thing I see in some markets is SPY and the QQQ hit major fib targets, but the others, DA and the IWM, still have room to their targets, so the bulls remain in charge. If there is a short, it is in tech, and that will continue to be the case until the scores change. So nice little throwback there to that. I'll let you know when I see the VIX signal change. One really good thing I would say is, if you're trying to get long here, is that the VIX has gone to somewhat of an extreme level, which is rare for the VIX. You can see that it's up here, and of course it's telling you it's extreme, right? So basically, it's extreme is just a variation of overbought the short term. So if it's going to reverse, it would happen relatively soon, but I don't want to call it quite just yet until I start getting a couple candles that would complete that idea. The bigger issue here for the VIX is just this one here. So I just showed you the positive divergence. Again, if you were blind to this, just keep an eye on your inbox closer to the end of the month, and I'm going to give you a solution for this. But fortunately, I did talk about it in the chat yesterday. So and we all had trades on it too. So it's not just hindsight. Price down, indicator up for a number of days. Think of it like stored potential energy. So here's the next signal that they have to bang out because it actually has gone all the way to an hourly signal. And this one's one that I really like because you can see that there's been almost no false signal here at all. And this is a really long one. So check this out. See that one right there? See that and that? So the way that this works is this is the primary signal. I try to align the signal with the lower one, right? So I try to ignore that and that and that and that because I want alignment. So when I see this, it just tells me to wait for that. When I see this, it tells me to wait for that, right? And you see how at that point, like for example here, there's alignment. This one's down, this one's down. So the entire stretch of time, this goes all the way back to November, by the way, this has been in a downward structure, and now, of course, you have this. So they're going to have to fix it pretty quickly, and it'll start with the 15-minute signal, and we'll kind of work backwards from there. So overall, all the things. Tesla's still trading like garbage. It's the only thing I have left on my book. I was pretty big short today. I was short SPX and QQQ, and I covered them all, which may or may not have been the right decision, but I want greenbacks, not puts. So I do still have some Tesla, but that's not working. So let's review some trades that we had together. So the Bitcoin trade was pretty cool. There might be something bigger developing there. It had the vibe of a short squeeze as of yesterday. We got in on Tuesday, I think. Which props to me, because nobody else will say it. Props to me for sending you a trade alert on my day off the mic. I didn't have to do it, but I love you, so I did. So let's look at BTC. There's something big setting up here, I think. I'm actually surprised by how well it's traded. My bias is usually that Bitcoin is just a glorified tech proxy, right? I just think of Bitcoin as the TQQQ basically, but it's gotten into a mood. And on this one here was the signal, so see how it went positive way back here? This is in trend. This is big block. And in reality, it's just a giant sine wave, right? Why does the indicator look so good? Look at that. Through here, look at that. Look at this move. From like 95 to 89 or 95 to 90, $5,000 drop. The indicator holds, right? So we got in right here during this hourly squeeze. And then, of course, little move there. So it does have the vibe of a short squeeze. Let's kind of go back for a second and see if there's anything else here. The weekly has a thrust arrow, which is a key component of this. And there is a little bit of a proper breakout pattern here. It looks like the SPY wants to take out the low. At this point, I think it probably just should flush to the daily 21 and see if it can catch a, because the only way the bulls have one move here. The bulls have their patented move, and you should know what it is because they have one move that they rely on very exclusively, and that is the undercut of a low and then monkey hammer to the upside. So I'd be kind of surprised if they didn't have to flush, let's call it 87 SPY, so another 10 points. But that would probably be their best move here. They tried it this morning, but it hasn't worked. Which should always get your alarm bells, because when the bulls pull their move out of their hat and it doesn't work, they usually will try from a lower location, though. They don't usually give up. So let's see if they can flush 87 here on SPY. It's only about 9 points on SPX. So the move would be flush 87, pop back above 87, and then rally it to about 90. That's the script. And here it goes. That's the script. So let's see if they got it here. So the ES did hit the daily 21. The SPY also hit it. That might be enough, but usually they would give it a little bit more of a tickle here to the downside. Might have gotten out of my put debit spreads too soon. I'm thinking going forward, what I'm going to start doing instead of doing shorter dated stuff, I'll do longer dated, bigger size. Because one of the things that got me to close my put debit spreads was they expire on Friday. But if they didn't expire on Friday, there's no buy signal here of any significance. All right, so that's Bitcoin. Nice little trade there. The only thing left to talk about on Bitcoin is why I did out of the money weekly calls, right? I think that's a kind of an important thing to talk about. So with Bitcoin here, we did it on iBit, and it was trading 151.75 or something when we got in, and I did the 53 calls, so they were 3% out of the money. And there is a time and place for out of the money. So there's this kind of thing in markets where folks kind of resort to heuristic thinking, which is, I'm always going to do this, right? I'm always going to do a put credit spread. I'm always going to do a delta 70 call or delta 70 put. And frankly, I'll shoot it straight with you. The delta 70 strategy is probably the best one. It back tests the best. It gives you the best mix of intrinsic and extrinsic. So if you do need a rule of thumb, go with the delta 70. It back tests great. It's just, from a risk to reward strategy perspective, delta 70 is the way to go. But there is a time to go delta 50 to delta 30. Delta 50 is a little bit more obvious because it's at the money, but there is a time to go delta 30, which is going to be obviously out of the money. And this was one of those times, right? Because the setup was explosive, right? The setup was explosive. And if it's not explosive, let's say I'm just totally wrong and it just eats it. Remember, we got in here during that squeeze with the arrows and the alignment, right? So you can see exactly why. And then we kind of got in during this little flagging pattern. So with this one, it made more sense to do it out of the money because if I'm right, it hits big. And if I'm wrong, it's less risk, right? With the delta 70, I don't get as much of a snowball effect. Think of options like snowballs, right? Like you'll have the delta 30, which is a snowball that's like that big. And then you'll have the delta 70, which is a snowball that's like that big, right? And you roll both down the hill. The goal is to have the delta 30 turn into a big snowball, right? So as it goes in your favor, it becomes a delta 40, a delta 50, a delta 60, a delta 70. And then point for point, it just becomes more and more valuable. As opposed to the delta 70, which of course becomes a delta 1 at some point. But it goes from a big snowball to a slightly bigger snowball. This one goes from a small snowball to a very large snowball. So that's that's the way I would explain it to to a newbie. I am dying to short the. There goes 87 on SPY, by the way. Now you see if they can pop it back. Now we're in trap zone. There's no turn signal. I want to stress this, but part of the surprise is always the flush of the lows through a important strike. Let's look at this. The problem is also that at this point they might as well come down here and hit this hourly 200. But I'd be kind of looking for a trap right around here. And also, let me be really clear. The signals are obviously bearish. They were bearish yesterday. So this is not a surprise. It's just a matter of like, can you kind of spot where they would normally look to trap? And this is kind of where they would look to trap. But I let me stress this extremely potently. There is no signal for that yet. So, and maybe that doesn't happen until the Europeans go to bed. They'd have to pop it back above this important level here of 38.5. And then ultimately, don't forget the major level I've been giving you, which is 54. So we'll see what they can do with it. And because I'm a glutton for punishment, let me check on my closed orders to see what they're trading at. Look at all the money I could have had. That's a lot of chilies. Okay, so we talked about that one. The SPX trade, I don't think needs a lot of coverage. It needed to be closed because we're now below the center strike by quite a bit. So it's fine. If it pops back, it'll look like a super banger, but you'll need it closer to about 69.20. Actually, you make money in quite a big range. If it gets to about 69.15, you'll make like 6x. 69.25, obviously you'll make like 15x. But at this point, if you held onto that butterfly, it's no longer a short, it's a long, because your deltas have flipped. So you actually needed to go up, not down. So that's Bitcoin. That was SPX. There's going to be a lot of Fed speak later today. I don't know about the tariff stuff. Honestly, here's the thing with the tariff stuff. If they ruled it legal or illegal, could you tell me what direction the market's going to go? Because the betting markets are betting 77% that it's not legal. The problem is, even if I knew 100% it wasn't legal, I would have no idea what the markets would want. Like, what do the markets want here? Do they want the tariffs to be taken off, or do they want the tariffs to keep on? I have no idea. And nor do I necessarily even think that's worth thinking about. And frankly, I kind of wish it would never come up in the chat, because I've done a whole lot better for myself just trading the chart that's in front of me and ignoring the news. I can't game theory the news. I like to, after the market closes, I'll sit down with a stiff drink and ponder these things just because it's fun. But fun and profitable are two different things. And I really couldn't even game theory it out. But the betting market says, at least from what I saw, 77% that it's not going to be ruled legal. I'm a little tempted to buy it here. We got the cues at the fire line. We got the cues at the tree line. The problem is I have nothing to do it with. I have a level. I have like a good amount of levels here. The cues at the tree line, the SPY below the D21. I got a good amount of support here. But I don't have a turn signal even on a 1 minute chart. I could come out and cowboy it, I suppose, and then just stop it out right below. What do we do, Sammy? Do we cowboy it? I'm a little tempted to cowboy it. Let me see what I can try to do here. I'm not going to recommend this trade, nor do I recommend that you do it, but I'm just going to test my theory. So I'm going to sell the 6,900 put credit spread on the SPX. But I will let you know when. I'm going to do it this way instead. All right, I'm going to get long here. I'm going to do it in a way that I can control. So again, don't recommend this. This is a little bit of a cowboy situation. But now we watch. Plus, I think you guys are already long, so you don't need me. Not a great spot, by the way. I just there's a tree line here, and there's a longer term. There's just a lot of levels here that seem appropriate for this idea, if not for nothing else, in a bounce. Plus, if they're going to do the trap thing, they really can't dick around too much. Like they've already taken quite a bit of damage, so they have to start somewhere. So let's see if maybe this is the spot for it. I did have a list of things to cover, but we covered most of it that's important. Bitcoin we covered. Keep an eye on it. Don't sleep on that one. I haven't liked Bitcoin in a long time. I don't think it can really, I don't think it's going to do all that much, but it could have a big move in the interim. Meaning I don't think it'll do that much in terms of like actually like new highs or anything, but it could easily punch back into 100K. So keep an eye on that one. That one's more interesting now than it's been in a long time. And, we got in pretty close to the perfect on that one. We covered the UVIXI signal. The IWM, I'm dying to short it. I just can't do it. It's just so stupidly strong. It's ignoring all my signals. It has a weak high. Let me show you what that means. But it's not actionable until it cracks. But if it cracks, I think IWM here offers a very decent short back to just some natural levels. Maybe some like 259, 250, 258. So there's a weak high here. I want to show you what that looks like. So you see how the indicator goes into trend here? Not bad. Not bad. Dip, 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 dip. Not bad. You see how this? You see how it's kind of doing this guy? So you see the difference here between this and this. Pretty big difference, right? So normally that's a weak high. But I'm not going to pick on that guy right now. All right, so let's see if they can punch it here above 39. I was going to do put credit spread, but I don't necessarily like the idea of waiting around all that long. So I just did it differently. So now I can get in and out more quickly. Still no signal, by the way. Okay, so I think we covered mostly everything I needed to cover with you guys. So that'll leave us half the session here to cover any questions you have. There were some questions yesterday. There was a question about butterflies. If there's interest in that, I think I could do a very good session in the showcase room at some point with you guys. I think I have a pretty good understanding of butterflies, and I can explain it in a way that makes it very easy to understand. I remember learning butterflies, and the guy that was showing me, my friend. Now, granted, we were like halfway through a bottle of whiskey when we were doing this experiment of him showing me how butterflies work. So maybe that had some effect on it. But I remember thinking, I'm not picking up what you're putting down. But when somebody really understands something, they can explain it in a way that's very digestible and easy. So I think I can do that with butterflies. So if there's any interest, just post it in the chat. I mean, you got to speak up, otherwise, I'll think that nobody cares. But if there's any interest in kind of a deep dive into, well, let me call it this. It'd be an intro and then a deep dive. So I'll start gentle with you, and then we'll get a little rough. But you got to ask for it. So if you want that, put it in the chat or email support or email Mandy at simplertrading.com. And if there's enough folks that are interested, we'll do it. That'll be in the showcase room at some point. So aside from that, long here on SPX, but with limited risk. So be aware of that. Be mindful of your risk, but this was just a decent spot for some levels. Honestly, I think if you've liked the market longer term, this is probably a better longer term spot. Like, it may just oscillate and mess around right here, but usually buying the tree line on the Qs on the first test of a back test of the tree line, when the tree line overlaps with daily 50, is not a terrible spot. The SPY, buying it at the daily 21, keep in mind, nobody likes buying it at the 21. It never feels good when it pulls back to the 21, but it's sitting here right now. So if you're somebody that has liked the market and you were looking to buy the daily 21, it's there now. You might want to wait for a turn signal just to confirm, maybe a 15-minute if you're looking to buy it for a swing, right? Give yourself a 15-minute turn, which you do not have. But think about it in 3 points. You want level, momentum, and then a trigger. So do you have a level? You actually have a lot of levels here. So that gets a check. Do you have the right momentum signal? And that's where the process gets broken, right? You don't have anything here. This is a max bear. So you would wait for a turn signal on the 15 for a longer term swing trade, maybe something into next week or further. doesn't matter. And then you wait for a trigger. So a trigger would be, this is what it would look like. You'd probably have to get like a positive crossover here on the 5-minute TO. You definitely need an arrow here. Got to cancel out this bear slingshot. You got bear slingshot everywhere, which is a lot of pressure at the moment. So you need an arrow and then something like closing above the high of the low bar. So in this case, this is the low bar. The last 15-minute bar is the low bar, closing above here, right? So that would be the trifecta. Arrow here, positive cross here, close above the high of the low bar there. That sets up a swing trade. Without that, we get to have a friendly conversation. Okay, so you know what I'm looking for? Focus on put UVIXI on your chart. I'm not a huge advocate of UVIXI, but I do think that it trends better than other VIX products. So, and I showed you the signal, and clearly it was a potent one. So just honestly, this is exactly the layout I would have, and all this stuff's free. So I would have the Mag 7 index, which you have. All of you should have access to that. I would have that up, Mag 7 index. I would have VIX, and then of course the internals. The internals aren't as relevant to me today. Of course, they're always relevant, but not, in gradation, they're less relevant today. I think what you really need is these Mag 7s to come up and the UVIXI to come down. And then that starts to set up the move. Also, just another little tip here. A lot of folks will get caught up on the absolute value of the tick. You'll see folks say plus 800 ticks, plus 600 ticks. I'm not a huge fan of that personally. Don't do that. You'll see other folks mention the moving averages on the ticks. Better than the momentary blip of like, oh, it's plus 800. Who cares? But sometimes, especially with the tickus, let me drive this home one last time. With the tickus, so most of you use the tick. My homework assignment to you at some point this week, go through and compare the tick to the TICUS, TIK-US, and you'll see a big difference. So I've covered that extensively, but do it on your own so you can prove it. Look at the structure of the ticks. See how the highs on the ticks are coming down? You see how the lows on the ticks are getting lower, right? So that's usually a recipe for a puke, right? Like, and you've already gotten the puke, by the way. So you kind of get one of these, and then from there you can try to go back up. So let's see what they got here at 39. You got 25 minutes left. If you guys have anything for me, let me know. If not, then we'll see if we can pray Tesla back to 450. That would be a nice little cherry on my Sunday. Still got the SPX long here. And looking for new ideas. Although I certainly have enjoyed day trading. So nothing wrong with that. All right. Well, it looks like at least a handful of folks are interested. So yeah, let them know. Let the folks at the top know. And yeah, I don't mind doing that. I'm going to go through the chat here since I've completely missed everything. Thank you, Mirza. Thank you, Lorna. Good to see you, Pete Air. No Mo Bill, Roger. Brian in the house. Tim Sabrina. Good to see you. Odie and the Bone. See how he got rejected right at that 38.5? Again, I would point this out. I don't have a lot of levels on my chart, right? It always makes me smile when somebody has 500 different levels and they go, look, it hit a level. Well, you have 500 of them, so the probability of it was pretty high. My second favorite, well, I'll keep that one to myself. Good self control, Sam. I was going to say something I shouldn't have. Good self control. So 38 half and 54. The only two manually drawn in levels I have on the ES right now. 54, you've seen that one. That one's been an absolute monster. 38 half is a little new because we haven't usually been able to get below 54, but here we are. So keep an eye on that 38 half and 54. 38 half and 54. If they can punch above 38 half, there will be a nice little pocket here. There's a nice little pocket. It's about 15 points, but they got to punch 38 half. And I think if they punch 38 half, they got to do it with ticks. If this were to punch 38 half and the ticks were to stay under 600 using the old tick value, right? I always, even though I use the tickets, I always reference the tick. So, like, for example, you'll never hear me quote like a 2000 tick or a tickus. I'll always just, because 2000 on the tickus is 800 on the ticks. But they would need a punch at least above 600 tick on the 38 half strike. And they don't have that yet. The advanced decline is basically dead neutral. So you'd want to see that get above, the recent swing high. And if they're not able to string these things together, then it's going to be, it would just be status quo, right? I tell you all this stuff not because I'm like, oh, it's bullish. No, I'm just telling you, like, what's the script? The script right now is clearly bearish, obviously. And then I'm just giving you all the, the recipe to turn it. But if the bulls don't start mixing things in the bowl, then there will be no cake. No cake for you. The mags are getting crushed today. Well, that shouldn't be too much of a surprise. Let's take a look at the mags as a basket. I told you guys yesterday. I mean, a lot of this best stuff that I give you is actually in the chat because, like, I was posting about this yesterday. I'm like, the mags do not have a good signal here, right? The mags just don't have a good signal. And it's not a huge deal. Usually, if the mags don't have a good signal, the rest of the market sucks and everything tanks. But recently, the mags have been not that. The rest of the market has taken enough of a lead to where the mags are not as relevant. And I hate saying that because it's not true. They're always relevant, but if you're able to push thousands of other stocks, it does kind of plug a hole. It's not an easy way to do it, right? Like if you're going to tank Microsoft, you're going to have to pop like 500 IWM stocks. That's not even an exaggeration, by the way, to plug that hole. But let's take a look at the Max 7 index here. I'll post it in the chat too, just in case you don't have it. So this pattern looks like shit. Now that I'm looking at it, this pattern looks like this looks like a death roll. This looks like a death rattle to me. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Markets are easier to trade to the upside, but in the event that in the event that this pattern is true, you want to short them. You want to short mags here heavily. You can see it for yourself. Pull it up on your end. I just threw the ticker there on your chart. So what do I notice here? Well, the more I look at it, the more disgusting this chart actually looks. I wonder if JC's right about some kind of short-term top. I'd kind of dismiss that idea because of the IWM. And frankly, it's still relatively early in the week, right? It's less than halfway through the week. So the Bulls got a fighting chance, but check this out. There's a lot of warnings here. Remember the positive divergence I showed you on the VIX and how that's playing out? This might be the biggest negative divergence of all time. This might be the biggest negative divergence of all time. Check this out. Look at this high. Look at this significantly higher high. Price goes way up. Why is the indicator going down? See how this high is higher than this high, yet price Right. So I didn't intend for this session to be a crash course into divergences. If your indicator not showing you this, you are missing out. You're blind to this, right? This is why it's so important to have dedicated momentum, in my opinion. And I'm showing you live, and it's not like this is like hindsight and I was long into today and I got you crushed, right? Like we were short based on these signals. The question is, should it be more short? And I don't want to jump the gun a little bit too soon because things are still fine. But this sets up, and here's the way I would say that I think is the most accurate. If this chart breaks, it will not go gently into the night. This will be a 5% dump in a week kind of situation. You see this open gap here? So, sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. This is my first time kind of really appreciating this. Price high, higher high, indicator high, lower high. Big problem. Secondarily, the squeeze. This is a good example. This is not a good squeeze. Right? It's important to understand good squeeze and bad squeeze. This is a good squeeze. Flat, this is a better squeeze. That one's gorgeous. That one's my favorite. I would take that one home. I would let that one meet mama. See that one? See how it's flat? Dot, 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 up bar, trigger. That's what you want. What you don't want, in my opinion, ask John about this. I mean, hell, how lucky are we to have the freaking creator of this thing, right? Like we would all be using the squeeze even if John wasn't here. But like how crazy sick is it that we have access to the creator of the thing? So this would be a good question for John. And I'd be very curious to hear his answer. What does he think about squeezes that look like this? You see how the squeeze is forming, dot, 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 red dot, red dot, red dot. But you see how the squeeze histogram, let me blow this up. You see how the squeeze histogram is not the same as the one that I was going gaga over? So let me show you gaga, and then I'll show you yuck. Gaga is this one right here. That's we like that. Smile. See how this one's forming, but you see how the histogram is not flat and it's forming in a downward formation. I do not like that one. Unhappy face. Secondarily, you see how it's the magenta dot? That's a high compression squeeze. These are the most likely to break against the grain. Kind of like this. High compression squeeze, one dot to the downside, breaking against the upward move. So spending a little bit more time on this because I'm kind of speaking to myself as I look at all this stuff because I really had not appreciated this. But there's a lot of problems here. And I think if you're going to keep pushing the Mag 7, you're kind of you're Sisyphus, right? You're going to be trying to push that boulder up a hill until proven otherwise. So that's a crash course there on the mags. No gasps on that one, huh? I think that was worth at least a gasp. Okay, so still gonna try to hold the long here. It's not a time decay long, but it is a long, primarily based on levels. It is a front run. There is no signal to it. There's no momentum signal. If you're interested in longer term swing trades, then the signal here, probably the earliest signal would be a 15-minute turn. We covered that earlier in the session, all the pieces for it. If you really wanted to lock in, then you would wait for an hourly turn. So it really right now, it just depends on what time frame trader you are. If I was a swing trader looking to buy it out until next week, I would be interested at these prices, but I don't have a turn signal. So maybe you can nibble if you are inclined to, or nibble after the signal is usually the better course of action. That's for swing traders, like longer term, at least a week out, even further. For day traders, you really don't have that much here. Trying to get above this 38 half strike. Let's see if they can do it. You got to see some ticks. I think the market recognizes this as a level. You really got to see some ticks. You want to see the IWM go green, and you want to see the mags. They're not going to go green, but just suck less. So IWM kisses green. It'll be the first one to go. Let's check the internals. Actually, you know what? We don't have to do that. Nothing's happening yet. You gotta punch here. We'll know it when you see it, right? You'll see a vertical bar. The 1 minute's trying to shape up here. It's shaking off a lot of the bearishness. You can see it going from red to gray. However, it is gray, but the signal is here. So it's still neutral down with bad structure and neutrally bad momentum. So not a lot to write home about there. All right, so if you guys are looking at anything, let me know. This 3-day squeeze on the SPY is still the signal. We're going to have to take it one day at a time, though, because the mag, and really, again, this is just me talking to myself. The mags here are the most important thing I could possibly see. IWM's taking care of itself. It doesn't need any help here. As much as I dislike the IWM, it's punching. The part of the market that's out of service is the mags. And we just reviewed that mag chart in pretty good detail. And that one has really gnarly bearish potential that needs to get washed away, meaning that it's got to get fixed first. So mags here, and by proxy of the index I just shared with you, the Mag 7 index, put that up as an internal. It will be, as far as I can tell, that's the most important thing right now. If I could have a little bit of strength in the Mag 7, or I could have 800 ticks, I would take a little bit of strength in the Mag 7 over 800 ticks. So that just that's the way I would look at it. mRNA. Looks like JC picked up a call credit spread. That's an interesting idea. 350. I like the asymmetry of that. It's about 6-1. I think if you're going to do trades today, those are the kinds of trades I would do. Doesn't mean it works, but it's just the asymmetry there is perfect, because even if it works a little bit, there's like a double, even potentially a triple in there, and it doesn't even have to work all the way. What I would not do, in my opinion, at this exact spot is 1-to-1 risk. So I wouldn't do like a 10 wide for $5. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. mRNA. Would I chase it at these prices? IWM's trying here. Well, the answer is I would not chase it at these prices. Personally, no. No, I think you just wait for a reconnect. I don't see a ton of value in chasing this. I would wait for a reconnect of the hourly cloud. See how far away it is from the hourly cloud, and the cloud is just the 21 and the 50. So I mean, most of you are using the 21 anyways. So what I would personally do is wait for a reconnect of the top of the cloud at some point. I personally wouldn't chase that. For whatever reason, it looks like David has voodoo lines on Myrna here. So there's a voodoo line at 43.5. The risk to reward here is better if you have some patience to get the pullback. All right, so trading 40. Fortunately, John's out here slanging, so that takes a lot of pressure off me. Although we're on the same side now, so we either live like kings or we go sleep on Taylor's couch. Middling tick here. But I did say it needed to be at least 600. Although you'd like to see a high of day on that punch. Advanced decline is improving. That's most there. Yeah, it goes. Now it's trying. Let's see if we can get 800 on this one. I don't so much care about the absolute value most of the time, but in this case, I want to see a high tick of the day because of that, the importance of that level. So this will encourage short covering if we can punch above the high tick of the day. And then anything above 800 is just gravy. All right, I think that's high tick of the day. 1 minute starting to shape up a little bit. Structure's improved. Target 54. I'd be pretty surprised if he gets to do 54 on a first test, but can't know until he gets there, so might as well get there. I'm going to sell my position at 54 if it gets there, by the way. I will absolutely sell at 54. The unbalanced fly strategy also. That one's pretty advanced. If we have time, we can include it. What I'll probably do actually is make it kind of an intro first, and then maybe kind of make it a beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And we'll do 3 sessions. I think that probably makes the most amount of sense. And then we'll record them all, and then we'll put them out for you guys. But you guys got to show interest on it, right? So don't just like assume that we're going to do it because, you know, I like to chase squirrels and I'm not with you. So, so if you ask for it, we'll do it. So, you know, write Mandy or let somebody know. All right. What's the ticks? High tick of the day. Advanced decline looks great off that, but that's going to be mostly IWM. IWM is up decent. The tree line, which I think if Henry has a session in here, he'll cover this one with you. But there's a tree line on the Qs, which is acting great. Mag's slightly less embarrassing. Let's see if they 54 is the level here that they got to get to. There'll be friction at 50, I would imagine, but 54 is really where it counts. And then the next one would be 60. Above 60 is actually kind of free to move around a little bit more. Gonna add a little bit to that Tesla. Actually, you know what? Let me add a little bit more. Why not? Got some ratio spreads on Tesla, but it's not like it's doing me any favors. All right, I'm going to add a little bit more to that. I'm going to add more to my Tesla, and we're going to pray that Elon saves the world. Surely. All right, there's that. So that'll be my fun for the afternoon. See if we can get 54. I'm going to take my trade off at 54. Of course, you guys are all free to do what you wish. Was this helpful? Like, we covered this in real time. I kind of like this stuff. Like, this is the kind of stuff I would show up for, more so than stock review. So we did a little bit of stock review. We looked at one stock, but I think this is a lot more interesting and fun. And I'm throwing a lot at you, folks. Like I don't know if it's I'm throwing a lot at you today, but it's all been good stuff. I think it's all been pretty good stuff. This is a lot more interesting, I think. As an advocate of the ticks, can you explain the difference between the ticks and the ticks? So the tick is going to have the NYSE tick. It's a New York Stock Exchange tick, and that's it. The tick US is going to have the NYSE plus the NASDAQ. So there's the tick for the NYSE, there's the tick for the NASDAQ, and then there's the TICUS, which is what I'm advocating for, which is the tick for both combined. So. Is that a chart for Tesla, the Mag 7 index? Not specifically Tesla, but it is inside. It is a part of the index. Tesla is only 10% of that though. But the problem is if that index breaks short, that's a wrap on tech. And if it breaks short with any seriousness, which I hope it doesn't, because markets are easier to the upside. But if it breaks short with any seriousness, then the IWM would have to become some transcendent godlike figure to carry the rest of the market. All right, let's see if we can tap it. I'm just going to take my trade off here. This was a nice little move. We got in decently. I mean, we front ran the signal. And frankly, for anything, actually, you know what? The 15-minute just gave you an even better signal. Oh. So now the 15 minutes trying to do the thing. You see how it came down to the lows, right? Look what it took for it to become oversold, by the way. If you have an indicator and it does not tell you when something is overly cooked, there's 54. If you have an indicator, it does not tell you when something is cooked. Look at this. It did not say it was cooked here or here or here. Look, it said it was cooked here. Again, you know, kind of keep that in mind. Bull slingshot is important. So if you can get the cross here, you have this already. This starts to set up a decent little buy here. So I'm going to take my trade off as I exit. Get out, get out, get out. Get out. There's no signal to exit, but it hit my target. Okay, that's that. Cool. All right. Well, that took us right to the top of the half mark on the hour. So I think TG's next. You guys got a pretty good lineup today. Everyone except me. You got a bunch of killers today. So stay tuned for TG. He's had some good stuff lately. He's joined me on a couple of shorts. He's been all over Bitcoin. So the hits will keep on coming. Today, this hour was the low point of your day. It only gets better from here. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it there. I'll look around to see if there's anything worth doing. But so far, the bulls, honestly, the script I told you about could not have been followed more perfectly. I told you they would flush 87. I told you to look for a pop above. I told you to look for a trap. I told you to look for a pop above 38.5. Look for it to go to 54. Honestly, today, go back and watch this one. I think there was a lot we covered today, and frankly, today was a 5-hour class that we usually do on a Saturday. We just got it for free on Wednesday, so I'm gonna go chase a squirrel. See you tomorrow. Cheers.